Hey everybody, welcome to another Cheltenham Focus with me, Daryl Carter for RacingTips.com. Loads and loads to talk about this week in terms of Cheltenham clues for the festival. Lots of talking points throughout the whole of the week. Plenty of ups, plenty of downs this weekend. But there's lots to like, lots to talk about, lots to get stuck into. And Tuesday last week at Fairyhouse, unaccepted for Willie Mullins was more than impressive. Plenty of the stables runners were needing the run at that sort of time as well. And he won by 4.5 lengths, hard held. He's a real big mover in the Supreme market this week. The horse in second that day was actually third behind Envoy Allen, so the form has a little bit of substance to it as well. He looks really impressive. Another JP McManus owned horse who just looks to have all the talent in the world. Available around 14 to 1 for the Supreme. Blue Sari, Abracadabras and Envoy Allen are the only ones ahead of him in the market. So people were definitely impressed with that. Willie Mullins has had multiple runners in this race over the years. So in 2018 he had 2, 2017 he had 4, 2016 he had 3 and 4 the year before, 2 last year as well. So he does run multiple runners, so don't be too worried about Blue Sari being in here. That'll likely be up to Mr. McManus, but don't be put off by the two horses of the same ownership in here by the same trainer, because he does tend to run more than one runner. On Wednesday, the big getaway for Colin Tizard was exceptional. Won by 8 lengths, beating 128 rated Blackjack Kennedy. I have him down as running to a mark of around 142. He was very impressive there on debut. He's only going to improve for that. Colin Tizard did say in his stable tour that I think plenty of this horse and he's got a bright future. The further the better, I would suggest. 16 to 1 for the Albert Bartlett, which is more than fair in my opinion. Looks a promising type. On Thursday, Footpad was the standout performance of the day for me. Winner of 5 of his 8 starts last term, including the Arkle, and opened his account this season over 2 miles 6 furlongs with an emphatic success at Thurles, destroying Balco de Flow Jets and Marla Beach. Now, he wasn't quite right towards the end of last season. After his fall, he sustained an overreach injury at Naas. So you could probably write off that 8th in the Ryanair last season. He's completely exposed still, and it's really interesting that they've stepped him up to 2 miles 6. I think they might have a crack at the Gold Cup with him. That is actually the furthest he's been over fences, and he looked more than impressive. Where's his likely target? Like I say, I think they're going to have a Gold Cup crack. He is around a 25 to 1 chance for that. I think that's pretty short, to be honest, at the moment. But impressive nonetheless. On Friday, what do we have? Master Debonair. Now, I don't really think this horse beat much that day, but he was impressive. But the standout performance on Friday was Angel's Breath. Wow, simply incredible. Took care of first flow with the easiest amount in hand. He's around 16 to 1 for the Arkle, 14 to 1 for the JLT, and 16 to 1 for the RSA. Now, the reason I say the RSA is because I think the further this horse goes, the better he's going to be. I can't really have him in the Arkle if it was down to me, but he's a really nice prospect. Nothing flashy, just really impressive. Neat, tidy jumper as well. Very economical, which I liked. Yeah, I think if I'm going to lean towards one of the two, the JLT or the RSA, it'd be the RSA for me. Now, I've got a silly little theory here, but I have a theory every single year that I think that trainers are going to swap their horses. I had it last year with Gordon Elliott, Delta Work and the Champagne Classic. That didn't come off. Turns out I was talking absolute nonsense, but I've got a feeling that Champ may go to the JLT. I don't know why. It's just for the reasons that, well, for why Nicky Henderson has been saying he's going to run him over 2.5 for the rest of the season. I think he wants 3 miles. You know, I think the further he goes, the better he's going to be. But I do think Angel's Breath is a proper stayer. So I think 16 to 1 for the RSA is not a bad looking price. If you're keen on that, I won't put you off. On Saturday, loads and loads to talk about. Only one place to start, Altior Cyrname, I guess. Now, I've done a review of this on my page if you wanted to have a look. But hats off to Paul Nicholls and connections of Cyrname, because he was outstanding. He was really, really good. His jumping is just what separated the two for me. He's so low, fast and economical over them fences. He barely touches a twig. He's almost like the Bouvardere of fences, if you like. If you imagine the way Bouvardere jumps a hurdle, it's quick and slick. It's exactly how Cyrname jumped on Saturday. He was excellent. In turn, Altior, he just didn't quite look himself. I'm not making excuses for him. but he just didn't quite look himself. He was always half a yard off the pace. He just looked like he was struggling for such a fast horse. He looked like he was really struggling to go to tempo. He was much bigger and bolder over his fences, and he was just losing plenty of ground. I've got him down for 7 ground errors, equating to around 5 1/4 lengths. Now, he was beaten by 2 1/4 lengths at the finish, so anybody that says he didn't stay the trip is simply wrong. He definitely stayed the trip. They're talking absolute nonsense if they don't think he stayed the trip, because you can't lose that much ground at your fences and get to within 2 1/4 lengths of the highest rated chaser in the country in Cyrname. Now, no other graded chaser has managed to get as close as Altior did, so anybody saying that he didn't stay the trip is absolute... Well, they just clearly haven't watched the race properly. But he's got a massive engine size, Altior, clearly, because you can't just make them ground loops and errors and get that close to him. I didn't think the trip was an issue, like I say. I do think they need to make a decision quickly in terms of where he's going to go for the rest of the season. Now, I had this conversation earlier with Brian, and I'm a bit worried that they're going to go to King George. I don't think the King George trip's going to be an issue. The sharp track round Kempton, I don't think that's going to be too much of an issue. But it's a must-win situation. If he doesn't win, they're going to have to make a decision whether they drop back in trip and try and have another crack at a third champion chase. Now, if they do that, what they're doing is they're basically limiting themselves and putting themselves on a timescale before the Cheltenham Festival to almost retrain Altior back over 2 miles for the rest of the season. Now, that's never ideal for any horse. You like a long run-up, a big long prep for those festival races. I'm not entirely sure what they're gonna do. Henderson has come out and said, and he's continued to say, that he's gonna have another crack. They can't wait for round 2. Now, that race on Saturday was all on Cyrname's terms, so I wouldn't get overly carried away with him being cut in the market to 20-1 for the Gold Cup at Cheltenham. He needs to prove he can do it left-handed, and he needs to prove he can do it anywhere other than Ascot for me. But he was sensational. 20-1 is short, in my opinion, for the Gold Cup for Cyrname. Altior is 33-1. Now, if we take the basis that Altior is going to come on for the run on Saturday, considering how much ground he lost and considering how close he got to Cyrname, how are those two 33 and 20-1, considering Altior can do it at any track? I'm not entirely sure. I don't think that market's right. I wouldn't be touching that. I'd just sort of let that play out a little bit and see what happens there. But it was an exciting race, no less. Elsewhere, Lorena was outstanding. Really did impress me. A standout performance of the day. I know I banged on about her for the champion hurdle last season, and that still hurts now. But she was very, very good over her fences. A very good jumper. She ran a time actually 1 second quicker than that of Get a Bird, carrying 4 pounds more. Pretty much D's down as well, so it was a very good performance. There was lots to like. She's best priced 11-2 for the Arkle and 9-1 for the JLT. Now, she wasn't quick enough last season for a champion hurdle, and Arkle's a little bit different, but I would think that the 2 mile forward trip of the JLT would suit her more. Now, I don't think there's ever been a mare, correct me if I'm wrong here, because I don't think there's ever been a mare to run in the Arkle. I've gone back for about 10 years and I can't find one. So it might well be a first. But if it comes up soft earlier in the week, I can see her going for an Arkle. It is always soft at the festival earlier in the week as it dries out over the week. So more than likely going to go to the Arkle, I suppose. 11-2. If you like it, take it. I would. I think it's only going to get shorter. Lost in Translation is the last one to talk about. Was simply sublime at Haydock. Turning over the king of Haydock, Bristol de Mai, in emphatic fashion. Now, really just hunted him round and then just picked him up late on. Bristol de Mai actually didn't go to gallop that he did go the previous years. I think it might have turned into a little bit of a tactical race. Instead of just seeing his rivals off from the front, he went a slightly slower gallop according to the times. But Lost in Translation did win, did dethrone the king, and he is now favourite for Gold Cup glory in March at 4-1. Not entirely sure I could have him for the King George, despite him being my horse to follow. All of his wins have come on a galloping track. Kempton, not so much that. Bit sharp, bit tight. I know he's going to have the speed for it. I'm just not sure the track's entirely going to suit his way of running. But I think he's got a massive chance in March. He really has. 4-1 could look quite generous if he continues to progress over 3 miles. He's got to go close. Now, it's time for the anti-post selection of the week. And I think with all this up and down in the champion chase market, will Altior drop back? Won't he drop back? Where's he going? I think that price at 7-2 at the top of the market for Altior is dictating the way the rest of the runners are being priced at the minute. So I'm going to take a chance on a horse in here at 14-1. Now, we didn't run this week, we ran last week. That horse is Duvan. Showed plenty of ability on after a 569-day return last week. We covered it in last week's Cheltenham Focus. I think he's providing a bit of value now, considering Altior, if he does drop back to this trip, is going to have an interrupted preparation for this race, where I think Duvan, who still retains a lot of his ability, could just be the standout candidate here. I think definitely the soil might well go for the Ryanair. And I don't think Willie's going to put Chacon Possois in here if Duvan goes here. So at 14-1, I think he's representing a little bit of value in a market that is all over the place at the moment, because we're not sure where people are going, or horses are going rather. So that is this week's anti-post selection. Duvan at 14-1 for the champion chase come March. Let's hope we are getting a little bit of value for our money here, because he's going to run at Christmas, and I'm not going to wait for him to absolutely hose up at Christmas and see him at 5-1 for this race come January. So 14-1, get on now. We'll put that on the list. Hopefully, we're going to put ourselves in a great position. Things are hotting up. We've got a lot to come. Thanks for listening.